Do you think that Occam's razor is used as a crutch to be so that people could sort of shake off this idea that Oumuamua might be of extraterrestrial origin?
I wouldn't call it Occam's razor. I would call it conservatism in the sense of sticking to what you already know as if that's the full truth, which is basically what I was mentioning before about the adults in the room. So, adults in general, they enjoy the notion that they already learned a lot about reality and they don't need to learn more. And they have very strong opinions, okay?
Yeah.
And that's wrong, okay? And it's wrong because, first of all, what we know is an island in an ocean of ignorance. And secondly, many times we were proven wrong. So just be modest and say it's a learning experience throughout your life. You're never an adult. You're always a kid, okay? And just admit the fact that you don't know much and you want to learn from evidence rather than your prejudice, rather than pretend, have maintain an image as if you're knowledgeable. And, that's really important. And so coming back to Occam's razor, that is an excuse to ignore anomalous evidence. You basically say, oh, it must be the simplest explanation based on what I already know. Just to give you an example, there was a paper published in Nature Astronomy about 2 years ago by a group of astronomers that said that this object that my book is dedicated to, Oumuamua, must be natural. Okay, it's a rock, period. That's it. So by authority, a large team of experts that worked on rocks for decades declared this object to be natural. Okay, now a few months later, another group of people argued actually to explain the anomalies, you needed to be a chunk of frozen hydrogen. Okay, and then there was a problem with that because it would evaporate very quickly. And so another team said, well, maybe it's a cloud of dust particles. And then there was a problem with that because it could get destroyed by coming close to the sun, get heated. So another team suggested it's a chunk of frozen nitrogen chipped off the surface of a planet like Pluto. And, every time, the reason I bring this up is there was a problem with each of these proposals, but all of them invoked something we've never seen before. We don't know if there are chunks of frozen hydrogen, nitrogen, or dust particles floating. But the point is, you had to resort to these to explain the anomalies. And the fact that the first object we have seen is of this nature and not similar to the most common rocks we find in the solar system implies that it's not trivial to explain the anomalies. Otherwise, why would these groups come up with all these explanations? If it was something we've seen before, they would just say that, okay? So the reason I bring this up is because there was this group of experts, the authorities on this subject that wrote the initial paper saying it's natural. How could they say it's natural if the explanations for what natural means came months later and were all based on something that we've never seen before, okay? So you cannot say it's natural if there are anomalies that indicate that it must be something we've never seen before. Within the mainstream community, I'm not saying this is my view, other people within the mainstream had to come and explain the anomalies in ways that that require something we've never seen before. Yet the claim that it's a rock of a natural origin was published, and the statement case closed was made before those explanations came about, before. And that means that there was an agenda, the same as the agenda of those philosophers, okay? And of course, when you ask people, they say, oh, well, there was this paper by the experts that said that it's natural, therefore it's natural. And I say, well, what about these other people that try to explain it, that they have problems? And then other people say, oh, there are these other people that try to explain it in this way, therefore case closed. And I say, well, but these are things that we've never seen before. How can you say case closed? We don't know if it's that case because we don't have enough evidence. We've never seen anything like it. Let's just collect more. So the key is, it's a learning experience. Even if we find that it's a nitrogen iceberg, on the next Oumuamua, by getting close to it, taking a close-up photograph, and we see that, it's a nitrogen iceberg, that teaches us something really, new because there must be nurseries that make those nitrogen icebergs at much higher abundance than the rocks that we are familiar with. And that's something new. So it's worth investigating. The way to respond to anomalies is to say, well, that's exciting. Let's fund a new space mission that will go and take a close-up photograph of the next Oumuamua so that we can learn more about it. And let's allow the possibility that it's maybe artificial, stay on the table. What is so, repulsive about this notion that there might be some equipment out there? Like, why isn't that part of our vocabulary? Why is weakly interacting massive particles that were never found part of the mainstream vocabulary in the context of dark matter? Or supersymmetric particles that were never found. People got awards, honors. The string theory, which is the dominant, most popular theory among theoretical physicists for unifying quantum mechanics and gravity, was founded on the foundation that assumes that supersymmetry exists, and yet supersymmetry was not found by the Large Hadron Collider. That doesn't bother anyone. They say, okay, well, maybe it's around the corner. The next accelerator might discover it. So that's the mainstream. Okay, that's the same mainstream that says, let's not discuss extraterrestrial equipment. They allow these discussions to hold, and discussions about the multiverse, extra dimensions, speculative ideas that are not at all testable within our lifetime. So I'm not saying testable next year, testable the next decade. There is no plan, no program by which the multiverse idea will be tested by experimental data. There is no plan for testing string theory in the laboratory, no plan. And I have no problem with that. You can work on mathematical ideas, but don't claim that they carry forward the torch of physics. That's what the mainstream is saying. And at the same time, don't ridicule, something that is much less speculative, such as we exist on a planet near a star like the sun. There are lots of stars like the sun that have planets like the Earth, roughly at the same separation. We sent out equipment to space. Therefore, it's quite possible that other technological civilization existed and sent equipment to space. And by the way, most stars predated us by billions of years. So this could have happened 1 billion years ago. And 1 billion years is a long enough time to populate the entire Milky Way galaxy with equipment that could replicate itself, that may have intelligence, may be autonomous. So to figure out if we live in such a reality, we can just look at the sky. So there is a test. And think about it. President Biden signed into law the defense bill just a couple of weeks ago, and it was $768 billion. And the definition of the defense bill is to protect the United States, to defend the United States from adversaries, from other nations, okay? So nearly $1 trillion dedicated to the concern for the security of the United States relative to other nations. Now, suppose you were to find, the Galileo Project that I established, which we can speak about, suppose it finds a technological piece of equipment that came from another civilization. So that would not be a matter of national security. It would be an international matter. And suppose the political system says, well, that is as important as protecting ourselves against other nations. That means investing $1 trillion a year to the study of that subject. And that is, thousands of times more than was invested in science before, because the biggest science projects consumed, like the Large Hadron Collider or the James Webb Space Telescope, they consumed $10 billion over a period of several decades in partnership of several nations. And what I'm saying is, at the moment, the search for such extraterrestrial equipment is not funded at all. So just think about, how important it is or could be to the future of humanity, and how little is invested in that direction. And it really is something that needs to change in our priorities.